Well, most people, I think, say that a reason they come to church is to be inspired or uplifted. And what does the Bible give us? A story where people are terrible to each other. A very, very dysfunctional family. And we might say, well, I could have stayed home to see that. But maybe that's the point. Lots of our families don't exactly mirror the image we have of what we think family should be like. While many people say family is the most important thing in their lives, even the best of families is complicated. Far too many of us, I expect, know something about the kinds of families where people treat each other poorly, where some don't speak to each other for years. So one of the things that is both challenging and marvelous about the faith stories we find in the Bible is that they don't shy away from the parts of life that are messy and difficult and real. So let's delve a bit into the one we heard this morning. We have two adult children, twin brothers, Esau and Jacob, and their aging parents, Rebekah and Isaac. The tension in this family has been evident from the moment the two boys are born. Esau is born first, with Jacob coming out second, but word is that he was actually holding on to the heel of his brother. And so they give him a name that means heel. And so this little family story becomes a part of Jacob's identity from the moment of his birth. Yep, he's going to grow up being the heel. And from that moment on, the brothers are very different. Esau is described as a skillful hunter, a man of the open country. And Jacob is described as a quiet man, staying among the tents. Esau becomes his father's favorite son. Jacob is his mother's favorite son. So Jacob grows up feeling like he's never quite good enough for his dad. And Esau grows up feeling he isn't quite worthy of his mother's love. Add to this an ancient tradition that gives power and authority of the family to the eldest son. Though this tradition has largely been abandoned in our culture, we see what it means in the way that it still impacts monarchies where it's observed. The line of succession for the crown of England, for example, goes from Elizabeth and Philip to their eldest son, Charles, then to his eldest son, William, and to his eldest son, George. Because of the law passed in 2013, omitting gender from the succession law, yes, in 2013, both of William's other children, including Charlotte, are in the line of succession before Prince Harry. I don't know whether it is still common in any of your families to have birth order determine expectations of children. Certainly, many psychologists argue that even our personalities can be impacted by birth order and how your parents treat you because of it. I think we can imagine that Prince William and Prince Harry grew up knowing that by this particular accident of their birth order, they would have very different resources, responsibilities, and power. So too, I think, with Jacob and Esau. But for these twins, the difference in their ages is barely calculable. But we know it's a source of tension for them, because there's this incident between the two men. One time when Esau comes home, he's been out in the fields and he's famished. And we don't know how long it's been since he's eaten, but he finds Jacob cooking some stew. And he begs to be given some, and, like the little brother would do, he says, "Sure, I'll give you a bowl of stew for your birthright, the right to be recognized as firstborn." And Esau says, "Sure, take it, I'm hungry." So by the time we get to the story as we heard Amelia read it for us this morning, the divide is well established. Isaac knows he's not going to live for much longer, and he prepares to pass the torch to his eldest son through a formal ritual blessing. We don't know whether or not he's aware of the deal that Esau and Jacob made over the bowl of stew, but he doesn't seem to be planning to honor it. He sends his son out to prepare the meal, but while he's out, his mother and Jacob devise a plan to trick Isaac into blessing Jacob instead. It's pretty clear who's doing something wrong here. Jacob and Rebekah go to great lengths to trick Isaac into believing that Jacob is actually Esau. And yet, who you identify with in this story may well depend on your own experience and what perspective you bring. Because as with every messy family story, there are many sides to any given situation. Take Rebekah, for example. Jacob gets blamed for stealing the blessing that belongs to his brother, but he only does so with a lot of urging from his mother. What kind of mother does that? Isn't Rebekah the real villain here? Well, perhaps. I think we probably can agree she makes some questionable choices. But imagine, if you will, imagine thinking that you couldn't have children at all. And then, wonderful surprise, you have two. You have twins that you love. And imagine watching them as one of them is clearly favored by their father, while the other one is mostly ignored. Imagine watching as your eldest son grows up with all the skills that will ensure he will be successful in life. He'll be fine. He's strong, he can tend, he can hunt. Your other son is smart, but he's quiet. He prefers to stay at home with the women and do things like make stew. You worry about that son. How's he going to make it in this cruel world? How are people going to treat him? How will he provide for himself, for a family? And how is it fair that his brother, older by what, minutes, will get all of the family resources and advantages? Can you understand why it might have appeared that Jacob was her favorite? Can you understand why she felt she needed to help Jacob secure some advantage? For those of us reading the story today, Esau appears to be the victim. And certainly, something is taken from him, and he does nothing to deserve that. But he also kind of conveniently forgets the deal he made with Jacob. What happened to that? And he also does absolutely nothing to try and understand his brother's perspective. They are caught up in this pattern of rivalry that doesn't allow Esau to even notice the unfairness of being given all the advantages of the world. Not because he deserves them, but because he came out first. He doesn't understand how fortunate he is. So when his brother offers to trade being recognized as being firstborn for the bowl of stew, he says, sure, why not? Hasn't really given him a whole lot as far as he can tell. He can't even see that for his whole life, he has been treated differently by his family and, frankly, the world. Still, maybe you can relate to Esau. Maybe because you're the one in the family that's supposed to be responsible. Maybe because you've been mistreated by people in your family. Maybe because you feel like your mother favored or protected your siblings or left you to fend for yourself. Or maybe you can relate to Esau because it never occurred to you that those you love may not have experienced life the way you have. I have a brother who's adopted. And I remember a conversation with him when we were adults. where he was talking about how he never felt like he fit in with his sisters, because we all like to do the same things. And the conversation stopped me in my tracks, because I thought we included him all the time really well. He was my brother. It never occurred to me that he thought I liked doing all the things he was talking about. Les, I said, we all hated that. All of us. Mom and Dad just made us do it. But looking back, how was he supposed to know that? He thought we were all some sort of crazy different thing. But I was like Esau, who never even questioned that his experience, coming in from the outside, might be different from mine. I think many of us have advantages by accident of our birth, and we have trouble understanding the perspective of those who don't. Now, lest you think I'm going to let Jacob off easy, let's be clear that Jacob does some pretty terrible things in this story. He lies to his father over and over and over again. His only objection to his mother's great deception plan relates to whether he's going to get caught. And when the scam is revealed, he takes off. He doesn't know it yet, but he will never see either of his parents again. He will not see Esau again for another 20 years. Do you have anyone in your family like that? Maybe you are the one like that, who never felt much like you were valued, never felt like you counted for much except for making mistakes or causing trouble. When you grow up feeling like you'll never be good enough, you can make some pretty desperate choices to get approval. And I don't know if you have ever felt like you weren't enough just as you are. I don't know if you ever found you pretend to be someone you're not to get the approval of others. I don't know if you've been driven to make some poor choices for what seemed like good reasons at the time. And I don't know whether you've ever felt alone or abandoned, like no one could possibly know you or love you or bless you. I suspect that we all feel like that at some time or another. I think this story provides us an opportunity to view our own conflicts and families from a different perspective. Each of us has hurt places which prevent us from truly believing that we are loved and accepted and blessed unconditionally. Each of us has weaknesses or blind spots that get in the way of us offering unconditional acceptance and blessing to others. Relationships can be complicated and painful, and when we don't take the time to understand one another's perspectives, we can cause each other a lot of pain. But if we can see ourselves at all in this story, perhaps we may also find insight into the challenges faced by others in our lives that we've never even considered. If we can imagine different ways that Rebecca or Isaac or Jacob or Esau may have acted, if we can imagine that, then maybe we could imagine alternatives for our own lives and our own circles. And there's something more. When Jacob finds himself alone in the wilderness, no friends, no family, only the consequences of his questionable choices as his company and a rock for a pillow, he has a dream. And in the dream, the presence of God comes to him and says, "It's okay. I'm with you. No matter who you are and what you've done, I will stay with you, and I will bless you." Regardless of who we most identify with in this story, I hope that we notice that even with the person who makes the worst choices, and in the places where the world least expects, God is still there. In the times when everyone else is gone, God is there saying, it's okay. I will hang in with you even if no one else will. You can be blessed. It is a message to carry with us, whoever we are, and whatever life is like in the places we will go when we leave this place today. With God, you are blessed as you are, and loved as you are. And God will always help you find your way to something called home again. And if that's not a little inspiring and uplifting, I'm not sure what is. Thanks be to God. Amen.